Hello and welcome. In today's video we're going to cover the following points. We'll do an overview of the IBM blockchain environment and how to make your MQ environment blockchain ready. We'll then cover the IBM MQ toolkit for Talos, followed by a demonstration of how you would migrate from version 7.5 to version 9. Let's get started. There are 6 overall steps you need to look at when getting your environment ready for blockchain using MQ. The key steps are to have version 9.04 installed, as well as the advanced queue manager, and then you create the configuration file and you can test your bridge. In a blockchain environment, not too dissimilar from other integration environments, there are many queues and queue configurations to consider. By using the Talos MQ toolkit, you can manage the discovery, the creation of the topology, managing templates, as well as compare different queue configurations by using the comparison feature of the toolkit. In this demonstration we'll show you the key feature of the MQ Talos toolkit, the ability to migrate MQ configuration information from one version to the next. We will go from version 7.5 to version 9. The target virtual machine will be a MQ version 9.04 instance, which has the IBM blockchain MQ bridge installed with some default queues, and we will then move the MQ 7.5 configuration queues and data into the target v904 setup, and I will now hand over to my colleague Ajay.
So we're going to start off by looking at the machine that has got MQ 7.5 installed on it. I'm going to start all the queue managers. And we're interested in the test QM1. That's the one we're going to move to the new machine. So let's look at a few objects that are there inside it. A few queues, a few listeners, and a few channels. The next step is to start the Talos server, and we log into the UI. Okay, so that's the test server starting up. Let's give it a few seconds to start. Right, then we go to the Talos UI page, login. I'll just use the standard admin user. Once we have logged in, the first step we're going to do is discover the existing topology that's there on our MQ 7.5 machine. So for that, we create a new environment to supply the IP address, a username and password for SSH. And just remember to choose the version of MQ to be 7.5 and then click on continue. So the first step is to discover the topology, and that's what we're going to do. So the topology is very simple. It's host and a set of queue managers that are under the host. Okay. So we see that the job is successfully completed. Click on done, and this shows us the topology. What we are interested in is only the test QM1. So I'm going to delete the other two queue managers from the topology. And then the next step is going to be reading the configuration. So that's how our topology looks like now. I'm going to click on read configuration to start reading all the objects and information that's under that particular queue manager. So it's going to look at only the queue managers that are listed in the topology and read details only about that queue manager. But it will go through all the objects that are underneath that queue manager. So this should take a few seconds. The job is completed successfully. Click on done, and we have read in the configuration. The next step is to create a template. So let's just look at that. So when you say click new and MQ, you're going to see what all was read as part of that read configuration. So you will see many more details now about that queue manager. So all our test queues are there. The listeners that we saw in the MQ Explorer, and then also the channels that are there here. Okay. What we're going to do is we want to move the entire thing into the new machine. So I'm not going to show you how to create variables and things like that. That'll be in a subsequent video. But for now, we'll just say we want to move all this configuration and in its entirety to the new machine. So I'll save the template, give it a version number 1, and I've saved this. So you will see now that test queues template is attached to MQ 7.5 environment. And that's a list of all the templates. So let's go to test queue again. It's associated with only one environment, env1. The next step is to create a dummy topology. That's going to be our target topology on the new machine where we want to move all these the test Q1, QM1 queue manager. Okay. So let's call it black blockchain env1 MQ904. We're going to choose MQ host here and then fill in the small number of details that we need. So IP address of the new machine, that's 108. And then the SSH username and password to log into that machine. And then on the other page, there will be some MQ installation info that we need to provide. Okay, so that is 9. That's pre-chosen to be 9. We're going to add a test queue manager to this. Let's call it test QM1 again. So it's just a dummy topology. There are no queues underneath this. Just save this, and we have created the topology. Now the next thing we're going to do is add a template to this environment, and that's the template we created, the test queues template. And you will see that now that's got applied. We're going to create a payload. What this does is it adds all the configuration from that template into this particular topology. Okay, so we can, in a short while, we'll just quickly look at what all has now been added to this topology. So let's click on view. If you see all those, the queue manager, the channels, the queues, everything is now appearing inside this topology. Okay. We close this, we go to the prompt and we run a shell script called run remote activity. It's got various attributes to it. The important thing is which environment are we trying to create and what's the activity and the toolkit. Okay. So we're trying to create it in blockchain. So you see that's run successfully. If we go to the blockchain VM, we'll see there was only one queue manager. So at the end of this activity, we should be seeing test QM1 also appearing there. So back to the script. So one of the parameters is environment, the other is middleware, the mode is write, payload is test queues. By default version is 1, activity is read write MQ config, and the toolkit is MQ. So let's wait a few seconds for this activity to finish. Right, it's all done. Let's go to the other other VM and look at that. That's, you can see that test QM1 has now been created here. Let's look at the queues. All the queues that we had on the VM1 have now been created here, or the MQ 7.5 VM have been created here. So are the listeners, and so are the channels.